Yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Are you letting people in, Chitrakshi?
Yes, sir.
Let them come in and then I think we'll start. Okay, then let me start. Is it okay? I'm starting now.
For
Yes,
me,
sir.
it's fine. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Friends and colleagues, uh, uh, my most sincere welcome to this webinar. Actually, it is not a webinar. We'll come back to that. But this is the 129th episode of the webinar series called Rethinking City. We've been running for the last 4 years. Some of you who might be familiar with this webinar series may know that we've been running this for the last 3 years, have done as many as over 125. We have had something like 550 urban experts and specialists and professionals and solution providers participating as panel members, speakers. And we also have dealt with large number of urban subjects, be it governance, housing, slums, municipal finance, climate change, just you name it, and something that have been managed. I before, and I really want to use this opportunity that Satprem has provided, and I'm told there's a fairly large group present today. Chitrakshi, my colleague, told me that we have as many as 220 registration, and even one third or one fourth done up. It's a large number. And I thought I must tell you, I think what we are in the process of doing in the next 3 months in form of webinars. And these webinars are very important, and I would like you to know about them in case you can make time, in case you can attend. Uh, Essentially, there are four types of webinars that we are planning in the next few months. The one set of webinars, which are 6 webinars, we're doing on a very unique slum upgrading program that is taking place in the towns and cities of Orissa. This is called Jaga Mission, and it is across the state. All the cities and towns have been covered, and it is so unique that we are calling this webinar series "Slums Are Solvable." Uh, and in order to anchor that series, we have 6 partners from across the world, and that includes United Nations, UN Habitat, and, and Cities Alliance, 2 organizations which are responsible for settlement and habitat issues across the world. They're going to be part of. And that is going to start August, September, October, 3 months. And we would very much like that those who are interested working on slum issues participate. Other 5 webinars we're starting next month are on climate change. And these are being done in collaboration, partnership with CityNet. CityNet, as many of you know, is a 30-year-old Asian network of cities with about 150 members, both city members and non-city members. And we look forward to that particular webinar because there's a fair amount of things to learn on climate change from Asian cities. We also are running a webinar series on cities of Maharashtra. We did Pune last week. We're doing Nagpur in 10 more days. And we are, of course, working on Nasik and Aurangabad. We also completed almost a series on cities of Gujarat, in which we covered Ahmedabad and Baroda, and trying to cover Pune. And we are planning, of course, a 5-event seminar series on Orissa. So if you really put all this together, it's a fairly interesting mix of webinars around city theme that we are planning and doing. Now, before I move on and introduce Satprem and let Satprem engage you, let me tell you briefly why we are doing this webinar series. What is the purpose? What is the objective? Why are we after it for the last 3-4 years? The reason is not very simple, but I think it's understandable. We're very concerned about the nature of urban challenge we are facing as a people, as government, as professional in this country. It's not easy. It's going to be very difficult. And it appears from whichever we look at it, we look at governance, we look at finance, we look at rivers, we look at water, we look at infrastructure, we look at environment. Our cities are saddled with very complex issues and challenges. And it appears that, and it's not to say that nothing is happening, huge amount of things are happening. But what appears is this, that whatever is happening is not necessarily going to deal with the complexity of the problem. And we feel that if you are not able to deal with the urban problem adequately in time, because time is not on our side, growing very fast. If the projections are that India's urban population by 2050, that means around 25 more years, would be 870 million. We're talking about doubling of the urban population in the next 25 years. So the pace is tremendous. And we don't seem to be on track in terms of dealing with this whole challenge. And we know very well that the price of not being able to deal with urban challenge properly, in terms of economic, in terms of environment, in terms of social, is very high. We can't really afford it. And we also believe very strongly the government is doing an enormous amount of things, so many policies, program. But fact remains that it's very hard to expect the government alone can do this. And on the other side, we know and we understand that there are people outside the government system, in industry, in business, in profession, in academic world, who we know a lot about these things. And we believe that, dealing with India's urban challenge, we require a wider societal partnership. Government plus society, government plus people, government plus experts. And this particular series that we're running is a step in that direction. It is trying to take explanation of urban challenge to communities, to people. And in my understanding, It is one of the rare efforts that is taking place, and we know very well there's a long way to go, but we believe it's an important thing to do. Coming to today's very unique event, let me tell you, this is not a conventional webinar in which we have a moderator and we have 4 or 5 speakers speaking on different aspects of a subject. Today's, and as a matter of fact, for us, this is the first time ever where a single speaker is taking stage. And today's person who is going to talk to you, is going to share with you his work, is a man called Satprem Maini. Satprem is a French person and has lived in Auroville, India since 1989. I was counting while reading this, it's about 36 years now. Satprem is a postgraduate architect in urban architecture and also the founding director of the Auroville Earth Institute. Satprem works as an architect, builder, consultant, researcher, and trainer, and of course, a lecturer. He has worked in 40 countries for promoting urban architecture, and since 1990, Satprem and his team in Auroville have trained more than 15,000 people from 94 countries on earth architecture and earth technology. Let me repeat, 15,000 people from 94 countries, half of the world. Satprem is a representative for Asia of the UNESCO chair called Urban Architecture, Constructive Cultures, and Sustainable Development. He is an occasional consultant to United Nations and a member of a wide global network of earth builders. Satprem specializes in compressed, stabilized earth blocks, arches, walls, and domes, and about that we'll talk today, as well as disaster resistance. Satprem has been granted 15 awards, 4 international awards, and 11 Indian awards. And I must tell you that Satprem is a friend for last 30, 40 years. Is enormous to learn from. So with this very long introduction, I hand over to Satprem to make a presentation of his work. He is going to talk about hour and 15 minutes, and there maybe for 15 or 25 minutes, we would have question answers. So that is the framework of the event today. Thank you very much. And thank you, Satprem, for this wonderful, wonderful event that you have created and sharing that you will do today. Thank you.
Absolutely stuck with the beauty of the work, the challenge of the design, and some incredible things that you talked about. I don't even have adequate words to thank you. Chitrakshi, there must be many questions. Can you put them? They must be in the question and answer session box. Can you pull them out and read them so that Satprem can answer them?
Yes, sir. I have 3 questions. If a bricklin is using natural gas instead of coal to burn, is that a sustainable practice?
Honestly, I'm not the best expert for that because I don't burn things. And I would say, yes, in fact, you see, gas, I think, will emit less carbon emissions than coal. But how, in fact, I have done some research, but I don't remember that. I should pull it out somewhere. But yes, I think gas will emit little less emissions, but I would say why to burn gas, coal, or wood when you can use CSCB either with raw earth or with a little cement inside? This is a question that I have, but I cannot really answer you how much effective it will be to burn gas instead of coal. It will be still a lot of emissions, but I guess less than coal.
Is it possible to stabilize CSEBs with lime instead of cement?
Yes, it's possible. In fact, because the choice of stabilizer depends on the quality of the soil. When you have a more sandy soil, it's better to use cement. And when you have more clay in the soil, it's better to use lime. But as a matter of fact, people don't use so much lime for two reasons. First, you have less and less quality lime in India and all over the world because of the lobby of cement. You see, the lobby of cement has totally crushed the production of lime all over the world. If you want to buy lime, first, the quality will not be so good, and the price will be more than cement per kilo, which is a nonsense, because producing lime is very simple. First, you burn limestone with about 1/3 less energy in fuel than cement. And to finish the work with the lime, you just have to sprinkle water on the quicklime, and that's finished, nothing else. Cement, they require very huge factories with a lot of processing of grinding before, grinding after, adding this, adding that, with a very high temperature of boiling, like 1200 degrees. Lime will be around 800 degrees Celsius to burn the stone. So theoretically, lime should cost less, but in fact, it costs more. Nonsense. And another reason why lime is not so much used, because the reaction of lime with the soil would change with the clay quality. That means if you have different types of clay, you will have to get different ratios for the stabilization and different type of curing. And that means you have to do a lot of research in advance before starting the production. That's why with these two problems, people, they don't use so much lime for the CCB. It's mostly cement.
Are CSEBs breathable when stabilized with cement? Are the cement stabilized CSEBs fully recyclable towards the end of life of a building?
Yes, in fact, you have two questions. Okay, the first one, yes, CCB breathe. Even if you have 5% cement inside, the clay is still alive. Because when you burn the bricks, you kill the clay. When you stabilize with cement, what is happening with the cement? The cement creates a kind of gel around the clay, which cannot move too much inside. That means the clay is alive, but cannot move so much. Move so much means to absorb too much water and then to swell or to dry and to shrink. And that means the clay is alive, and because of that, the clay can still moderate the temperature inside the building and outside and control the humidity of the building. That's why in fact, in all of the buildings that I have been building myself, I don't put air conditioning. We deal a lot with natural ventilation, with cross ventilation, and the building is totally breathable. Plasters are done with stabilized earth plaster with lime and soil. And your other question was what? There was this. Can you remember the second question? Second part of the question?
Are the cement stabilized CSEBs fully recyclable towards the
Yes.
end
In
of?
fact, we did some tests. In fact, to recycle CSCB, that means to break a block, crush a block with a machine, and reuse the soil for making new blocks. We have done that. You can do that. In fact, you can crush CSCB and mix them again with some raw soil. You cannot use only crushed CSCB. You have to mix a new soil with a crushed CSCB. In fact, the CSCB will become, once crushed, like an aggregate, to which you add to the soil with a little more cement. So it can be used again, and it can be also recycled. In fact, when people want to build, they want to build for eternity, and CSCB can be biodegradable. I can say that because we have done once here a wall with rounders with 5% cement inside, and we had a pile of compost from cows. In fact, we had a pile of cow dung with compost against the wall with rounders for maybe 1 year. I could see that after 1 year, the rounders wall with 5% cement was destroyed on 1 inch. I could scrape the wall with CRCB with my fingers. And because what's happening, all the chemicals in the compost and the cow dung attack the cement matrix of cement and soil. And then what it means, imagine that tomorrow an earthquake comes, everything falls down. In 10 years, you have earth again. You don't have any trace of CCB because the nature has totally digested the cement matrix in the soil. And this is a biodegradable material. Of course, it will take quite a lot of time, but it can be biodegradable. Cement cannot be, fibrous cannot be.
We had the tradition of living in earthen housing. As the time pass, can we convince the people to build using CSEBs as 1 to 5 in every 10,000 people globally? And this is a major thing I faced as challenge about alternative material construction. Bamboo, even though there are building with 3 floors in Bali with complete bamboo.
Yes, in fact, this is the main issue. In fact, it is how to convince people to change their mindset and to build with natural resource and locally. Because in the mindset of people, earth means Kacha house, house for the poor, which is not lasting with the water, which is true and not true. I have examples of buildings with earth which has resisted the flood of 2015. Row houses with raw earth houses we built with either adobe or cob. Adobe is a sun-dried mud brick. Cob is a stacked earth technique. There was a very heavy cyclone in October 2015. You may remember the airport of Chennai with airplanes floating on water. In October 2015, we had in Auroville 1,532 mm of rain in 3 weeks. And we have in general in a year only 1,250 mm per year as an average. And what happened in the villages south of Pondicherry? A dam collapsed, a dam in a village collapsed because of this heavy rainfall. And the village was built with adobe and cob. And the village stood in water for 1 month. That means we say that a building cannot resist water, which is true in a way, but not true in that case. And why the building could resist water? Simply because the people who have built the building maybe 100 years ago, they had built it well with the proper earth. But over time, when people they lose the knowledge, they don't use the proper earth, they don't build well, then the buildings they don't last. So in fact, yes, the main question is how to convince people to build with raw earth and natural building materials. And I have the same question and I don't have an answer for that. We do a lot of advocacy. We have done so many buildings to show the examples of what we can do and what people can do, but it is still very far from the mainstream building system. So
Is there some waterproofing done on top of these vaulted domes?
Yes, of course, yes, of course, yes. We use normally. In fact, I have mentioned that I have done some waterproofing with stabilized earth. In fact, this is still in the research because we have done 1 vault like this, but after some years there was some problems of leakage because the sun destroyed the waterproofing because this waterproofing has some cement and lime, but we had some natural products inside the waterproofing. And my understanding was the sun was destroying these natural products. That's why we still have to do some research for stabilized earth. Otherwise, the basic system we do for these vault and domes is a ferrocement plaster. Ferrocement is a cement plaster with chicken mesh inside and ceramic tiles on top. This is what I do normally for this waterproofing of the walls and domes.
What is the material used to plaster the CSEB buildings? Ferro cement?
Yeah, but this is for the waterproofing. For the waterproofing, we use ferrocement, and that's it, and ceramic tiles on top of it. But for the walls, we use a stabilized earth with lime. We use a lime with some soil, sand, and marble powder, and we plaster the walls with that if we need it. In fact, we don't always plaster the walls. We just plaster the walls which are heavily exposed to the rain. That means we don't plaster many walls, in fact. But we use in that case stabilized earth plaster with lime, which is a very light pink color with a result from Auroville.
How many earth blocks were required to make to be made every day during the construction of the dome?
For the last dome that I have built in Gujarat, the blocks they were done long in advance. In fact, the blocks they were produced between 2021 and 2022. But the set was very long because the local team was not so much efficient and they took a long time for many things. But all the blocks they were produced in advance. And totally, we have laid for this dome 297,560 blocks, and of the 18 different types.
How could the Auroville Earth Institute experience and knowledge further scaled up in India?
In fact, we give a lot of training courses. So we have, yes, we have about 20 weeks of courses per year, which are scheduled. Sometimes we schedule more if there is a request for that. So we have trained a lot of people. That's why our system of education is on one side theoretical and practical. That means every trainee engineer or student, they have to work with their hands. That means they will have some theory first, where they will learn all the theory on different aspects of the system. And then they will have to work with their hand to produce blocks, to lay the blocks, to build this and to build that. And we have normally 2 weeks courses for the CSCB production, 1 week for the CSCB production, 1 week for the masonry. And then we'll have courses for building architectural domes. Any other question?
Well, I think I saw a few, I think, in the chat box.
What's the, sorry, sir, I was on mute. What's the
Uh,
biggest challenge you faced convincing clients or authorities about using Earth?
The main challenge, I would say, in fact, in general, people who come to me, they have already some awareness and they know what they want. I will have to help them to precise really what they want. But people who come to us, they have already some incentive on what is what, and so I don't have really to convince them. But the most difficult is to convince the decision makers, because decision makers, they can really block a system. And honestly, I don't have a miracle answer to tell you to convince people. It's a lot of effort showing what we have done in the past. Try this test with the water resistance that we have done with IEPAN on the block is a help for that. And it's a lot of advocacy and a lot of work. But I cannot give a miracle answer for how to convince people.
the 2 questions from the chat box that I saw. One says, do you have any plan for such a kind of project in Nepal?
In fact, in Nepal, I have built a school in Nepal. In fact, we have built 2 schools in Nepal. I did not show it here. I could have showed it, in fact. It was a school built in Jantanagar in 20 days with the local participation of the local villagers. And I don't have any plan in the future for Nepal, not at all.
Other question is slightly technical. What about the steel reinforcement in composite beams and columns? Do they rust at a much faster rate than when encased in concrete?
No, because in fact, yeah, of course, I cannot show you too much in detail how it was done, but we don't have the stabilized earth against steel directly. We have always some concrete in between. That means you have a steel bar, then you have some concrete around, and then the CSCB. That's why we have always 1-inch cover around the steel. So when you have the U-shaped blocks like this for the plinth or the beams of the building with U-blocks, then you have always enough cover of concrete around the steel to prevent rust and corrosion of anything. That's why, for example, for porous concrete, we have developed a lot of porous concrete, but I don't reinforce porous because I don't know how long it will last. In fact, we have done some tests in 2012 with beams reinforced with either bamboo or steel, and the beams cracked, but we have kept cracked the beams outside on the range for now 13 years. And the beams are still intact, people, they sit on them, and that there is no, apparently, any corrosion of the steel inside. This is with porous concrete. But with CSCB, we cannot have CSCB in contact directly with the steel, because CSCB will be too porous. That means you have always steel with some concrete around and then CSCB around the concrete. So we call them composite, because you have three materials, steel, concrete, and CSCB.
Satprem, two more questions. What is the biggest challenge you face convincing clients or authorities about using earth? What have been your challenges in either convincing client or convincing authorities to use earth as a building material? Have you had problem convincing your
No,
client?
not really, in fact, not really, because when people come to us, they know what they want, they know that they want earth. And with authorities, like it was the case in Sri Lanka, for example, with all the examples that I have done here and there, it was enough proof. And especially in India and in Sri Lanka, you have standards on CSCB. In India, they don't call them CSCB, they call them stabilized soil block. In Sri Lanka, they call them CSCB. That means as you have already some standards, you can always show that this is what you have in the standards, I just follow it. Finished. That means we don't really have problems with authorities in India because there is something, and in Sri Lanka the same. And when we show what we have done over the years in India or elsewhere in the world, there is no problem. So in fact, I don't have really problem to convince authorities or people.
One more question. It says, how could the Auroville Earth Institute experience and knowledge be further scaled up in India?
So yes, in fact, we had a project to have the School of Architecture of Earth Architecture. In fact, we had a project to do that in Auroville, but too much complications and too much finance required. Especially, you see, I'm a postgraduate architect in Earth Architecture, but I'm not registered in India because my diplomas are not recognized in India. So when I wanted at the time to register with the Council of Architecture, they asked me, okay, yes, so your diploma from France? No, funny, we don't take it into account. Unless you show your marks that you had at that time and blah, blah, blah. And that means officially I'm not even recognized in India as an architect. And another problem that we had was to be able to give a certification, because in Auroville, for the time being, we just give a small certificate of attendance of the training course. But for what we wanted to do with the Earth Architecture School was to give really diplomas and certified by the government. But the problem that for the government, we don't exist, we are not recognized. But nevertheless, Actually, our institute is mentioned in books from the Ministry of Forests and so on, who are mentioned everywhere in different things in India. But officially, they don't want to recognize you as an educational institution which can give diplomas. And this School of Architecture in Auroville, I think will not come because we have too much resistance from everywhere.
So then,
Okay. I think there is nothing much left now, and it's also 5:30, a little beyond, and therefore I think we'll wind up this Satprem. All that one has heard from some 90 people who were there in this hall, they were absolutely thrilled by what they heard. Good number of them have never heard this before in terms of potential, in terms of scale, that you could do 110 feet diameter dome in Gujarat, made out of earth without reinforcement, is something that people have not really heard. And those who are here, I understand a good number of students of architecture have been very impressed, very, very delighted that this presentation happened. I also wanted to make an announcement on your behalf, if you agree. I want to tell
Yes.
them that Satprem is leaving for France day after tomorrow, but he is very deeply involved and interested and committed to what is happening in India. And technology is such that it's absolutely possible to reach. As a matter of a good number of webinars we have done, we had people talking from other countries. And if you agree, Satprem, we probably should do a sequel, a second one on this, where you could go into details of what you say. Now, if that is
Why
something
not? Yes.
possible, if you think that is something possible, and it has not to be tomorrow, day after, it could be after a month, 2 months, whenever you are free. But we would very much want to encourage, support, and tell people that we will find Satprem to come back again to share his knowledge and his understanding and his depth of commitment on the earth architecture. Is it, you
Yes.
think it's possible?
Yeah, can be possible, yes. It can be a little more technical if you want. Yes, why not?
Sure,
Yes.
sure. So what I'm saying
Yes.
is that we will work it out how to do it.
Yes.
But for the group which is sitting here, I'm making a promise that there will be the second installment of this incredibly rich presentation.
Okay.
It's hard to believe that one learns so much in as much as 1 hour and 20 minutes. So thank you, Satprem, very much. And thank you on behalf of everyone who heard you, on behalf of everyone who essentially have become a better architects, a better concern about the world and sustainability and possibility of nature's resources. So thank you very much again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Satprem, Chitrakshi, is everyone left, Chitrakshi? I wanted to talk to Satprem. Chitrakshi?
no, sir. Sir, please wait for some time, 1 minute.